In the news tonight, on day 2 of Agro Fest, a call is made for it to be placed on the tourism calendar. Another surge in patients at the QEH's Accident and Emergency Department. And in sports, there's a new chair of the CARICOM subcommittee on cricket.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thank you so much for tuning in. In our top story tonight, a call for Agro Fest to be placed on Barbados's tourism calendar. It comes from Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul, on day 2 of Agro Fest 2025. Trevor Thorpe reports.
From livestock to textiles and aquatic displays, the attractions are wide and varied at Agro Fest 2025. And if the crowd is on day 1 and again on day 2, there's no doubt about the popularity of the event. That's the reason BAS CEO James Paul believes it should be afforded a place on the tourism calendar.
It is important that we recognize that, tourists, when they come to the destination, a lot of them want to see the diversity within the country. AgroFest is one way of showing them that diversity. So that is why I think that they need to embrace it. Maybe the Ministry of Tourism too needs to play an active part in embracing the show, and even when they're doing the promotion overseas, let them know we have a vibrant and active agricultural sector.
Pinnacle Feeds brought teaching and education to its exhibit, and head of the commercial division, Karasan Roland Gordon, says as they are celebrating 80 years, being at AgroFest meant much more to them.
We're doing a gardening workshop, and this workshop is really geared to bring some enlightenment to our sustainability. We recently celebrated our 80th anniversary, and as a part of that, we planted 80 trees around Barbados, and we're continuing that initiative. So in the workshop, the kids are exposed to good gardening practices as well, and they actually get to take home the seeds and the plant that they sowed and nurture it and help it grow as well.
The Holders Hill Community 4-H Club unveiled a cross-section of items from members, and a 7-year-old Shakir Cox says he is looking forward for tomorrow.
They had to prepare some more cookies because we were almost out of them. And then that's usually most of all I did.
Guyana, Suriname and Cuba are among the foreign exhibitors. Senior manager at Guyana Export Promotions, Rehanna Regaber, says they have a larger delegation this year and are looking to have more of their products and services available in Barbados.
On Monday, following AgroFest, we have a business-to-business connect session where we're meeting a couple of Barbadian distributors, some tour operators and so on, because we're trying to see if we can twin our tourism product, 1, and 2, to create some amount of partnerships within the Bajan companies and our companies as well.
AgroFest 2025 goes into its final day tomorrow. Trevor Thorpe, CBC News.
The deportation of Caribbean nationals by the Donald Trump administration in the U.S. is not so much a CARICOM issue as it is a matter for the individual member states. This from CARICOM Chairman, Prime Minister Mia Motley, as the grouping wrapped up its 48th conference yesterday. She notes that deportees do not go to CARICOM but rather to their respective countries, and says each government is making its own arrangements to receive its citizens for resettling.
We all agreed that the most important thing is for us to have the information attached to the persons who will be coming back. All of us accept that it is the right of any government to determine who should be within the jurisdiction of the particular country. The President of the United States and his administration has made it clear. We have asked each in our own right for that information to help us to be better able to prepare. We hope that at some point within the next month or two to have a high-level engagement with the United States government generally, not just on this issue.
Meanwhile, CARICOM remains concerned about the declared change in U.S. trade policy. Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, who has responsibility for external trade negotiations in the CARICOM Quasi cabinet, says many businesses have reached out as the private sector is concerned. He adds, however, that the region has a well-established office for trade negotiations and they'll be using the resources to study the challenges that could come and provide guidance going forward.
We will therefore be conducting a very detailed review of our trade situation with the United States, and we hope that in another 3 or 4 months we will have a document which will give us a policy direction and give advice and support to the governments of the region as to how to treat with any potential change that may happen in U.S. foreign policy.
A rise in trauma cases is among the factors blamed for a surge in patients being experienced at the Accident and Emergency Department of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Communications specialist Shane Seeley says these include patients with gunshots or stabbing injuries and others involved in motor vehicle accidents. Other reasons include rising influenza cases and uncontrolled non-communicable diseases. Mr. Seeley gave the assurance that hospital officials are working to manage the situation.
We encourage patients to contact the Patient Advice and Liaison Service, PALS, or Help Desk at 536-4800, and you can use regular or WhatsApp calls between 7 in the morning and 12 midnight, and this would be for an initial assessment and guidance on your next step for treatment. Additionally, patients are advised to visit the 24-hour Winston Scott Polyclinic at Gemmetts Lane, St. Michael, or you can consult your private physician. Life-threatening conditions will continue to be treated immediately under the Accident and Emergency Department's triage system. However, patients with less urgent concerns may experience longer wait times. We appreciate your understanding as we work to manage this surge and reduce wait times.
Coming up on Newsnight, tributes flow for the late Professor Pedro Welch and former Senator Arnie Walters, laid to rest. Prime Minister Mia Motley says Professor Pedro Welch was genuinely a gentleman and a scholar with a passion for history, culture, and ensuring Barbadians cultivated a healthy understanding of and respect for African heritage. Ms. Motley was paying tribute to the former deputy principal of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, who died yesterday at the age of 74. She said his death came at a time when many expected that he still had so much to contribute, and is a reminder to those he has left behind that they should use every moment life affords them in the pursuit of endeavors that would make the world a better place. She adds his death has come at a most interesting moment in the life of the country, particularly when juxtaposed against the fact that in just over a week, 2 eminent Barbadians who made their mark as historian educators and whose passing has left a huge void. Prime Minister Motley says Professor Welch and historian Trevor Marshall were 2 academics who emerged as part of the first generation of post-independence Barbadians whose mission was centered on helping Barbadians to understand who they are through careful and conscious study of the past. And Ms. Motley hopes Barbados will produce a cadre of younger historians rising to fill the void. Principal of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, Professor Clive Landis, has also been paying tribute to Professor Welch. Professor Landis, who worked with Professor Welch while he was deputy principal of the campus, says he was a giant of a man in terms of his humanity and really cared for the well-being of not only his students, but every student that walked through the campus's gates.
In addition to all of the accolades that you'll hear from others about him as a historian, I could really see the humanity of the person, and he really cared very much for the welfare of students. It's a tremendous shock for the campus community on his, very unexpected passing. I saw him this year, looking in absolutely fine form, and as I said, it's a great loss for the Cave Hill campus, and he will be missed.
Professor Landis also spoke to Professor Welch's contribution to the history of Barbados.
if it wasn't for people like Pedro, undertaking the history of Barbados, what would we know about our country? And today in Bajan history, it's just I think that's part of the legacy that he's left, where the history of Barbados, the true authentic history, is being told day by day. We're now almost up to 2,000 podcasts. So, I think everything of importance that we know about Barbados was written by people like Pedro and, those brilliant colleagues in the history department.
Former Democratic Labour Party Senator and Minister Arnie Walters has been remembered for his contribution to government, the trade union and the human resource field. Tributes were numerous during his funeral at the chapel at Coral Ridge Memorial Gardens, where his loved ones, former DLP colleagues and representatives of government gathered to reflect on his life as a family man and professional who touched many lives. Anesta Henry has that report.
Prime Minister Mia Amra Motley has described Mr. Walters as a man of utmost decency and fairness. She says even though they did not belong to the same political party, she accepted Mr. Walters' request to speak at his funeral service because he was a Barbadian who gave his life to service while striking the balance as a family man.
While seeing his foremost duty to you each, he was able still to make a difference in the lives of others. That is not an easy thing to do.
Mr. Walters had a long career in industrial relations and human resources. At one point, he served as a senator and minister of state in the Prime Minister's office with responsibility for employment, labor relations, and the social partnership. He was also Minister of State for Labor and Immigration. Former DLP colleague Maxine McLean remembers him as a man of calm demeanor, suggesting this has helped in his tenure as minister.
He stood tall, literally and figuratively, as somebody who understood the industrial relations landscape, the issues of human resource management, and made a very valuable contribution.
Following a battle with prostate cancer, Mr. Walters passed away on January 19 at the age of 77. His wife, Anita Walters, says he was her friend, confidant, and greatest supporter.
My husband loved me unconditionally. And as Amanda said, he said it was a force to reckon with. One day he said, if I knew what life with you would be like, I would have joined the regiment. I said, too late for that, Arms.
Son Ian Walters says his father cherished his 3 children and 5 grandchildren.
Arnie wasn't someone who jokes around much with everyone, but when he was with his family and close friends, his lighter side shone through. He was kind, funny, and full of humor.
A private cremation ceremony followed the service of Thanksgiving. Anesta Henry, CBC News.
Good evening with sports. I'm Anne-Marie Burke. President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali, has been selected to replace Dr. Keith Rowley as the new chairman of the CARICOM subcommittee on cricket. The announcement was made by outgoing chairman Dr. Rowley last evening during the final day of the 48th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting here in Barbados.
We did have some discussion, and not too much detail, because we have done some work before in Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, and we've seen some results. Some progress have been made and being made, but the main thing is that because this is the end of my tenure as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and my last meeting at CARICOM, today I handed over to at plenary, and the heads selected or agreed to select my colleague from Guyana, who is an eminent cricketer, as you know, President Irfan Ali, to now take the chairmanship of the subcommittee on cricket, because we maintain our interest in the potential for West Indies cricket to remain at the high level internationally, and the preservation of our legacy. And the heads of government should continue to be interested in what goes on in West Indies cricket and assist wherever we can.
It was a game of records when Australia and England met in today's match of the ICC Champions Trophy in Lahore. Ben Duckett became the first batter in the history of the tournament to score more than 150 runs as the opener anchored England to the tournament's highest ever total of 351 for 8. Duckett smashed 165 off 143 balls with 17 fours and 3 sixes. However, Australia pulled off an epic chase of 352 as Josh Inglis hit a sensational 120 not out from 86 balls to complete the chase with 5 wickets and 15 balls to spare. The Canadian duo of international master Nicolas Noritsin and Grandmaster Jean-Rodrigue Lemieux have jumped to the top of the table after 4 rounds in the Situ Barbados Open Chess Championship being played at the Grand Salle of the Central Bank of Barbados. Playing this morning in the Open Division, both Noritsin and Rodrigue Lemieux won their opening 4 games and are tied for the lead on 4 points, with Rodrigue Lemieux ahead on the tie break. Noritsin, the number 2 seed, defeated fellow international master Orlando Husbands of Barbados with the black pieces in the opening round. He also defeated candidate master Darren McKennis, international master Terry Farley, and FIDE master Kevin Cupid. Meanwhile, the top-ranked Rodrigue Lemieux won against McKennis, Farley, Cupid, Alanderson, Selkirk. FIDE master Ryan Harper of Trinidad and Tobago is currently in 3rd position. The winner of the open section will walk away $4,000 Barbados dollars. The runner-up $3,000, while 3rd place will take home $2,500 Barbados dollars. The Barbados Under-16 netball team will be defending their Jean Pierre Caribbean Youth title on home soil. This is the Barbados Netball Association is set to host the 21st edition of the tournament from April 6th to 14th at the Wilde Gymnasium. Barbados last hosted the Jean Pierre Caribbean Youth Netball Tournament back in 2016. In a press briefing at the BOA headquarters in Wilde, where members of the other 5 participating islands, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia and Trinidad and Tobago, joined via Zoom, President of the Barbados Netball Association, Dr. Carmita Duglin, says outside of the actual gameplay and the usual welcome ceremony and opening ceremony, there will be a number of other events planned for the teams.
We also have a Speak Sister breakfast seminar, and this is for all of the teams that will be coming in, because we don't just want this to be netball only, but we want to develop these young players, and therefore we're having a leadership seminar where we have invited some of our parliamentarians to participate, some entrepreneurs, some entertainers, etc. And this is going to be a special event held on the 9th in the morning for those young people that will be invited, both Barbadians as well as the 6 participating countries.
A major marketing drive is also in the pipeline targeted toward the island's public and private secondary schools, where school visits, social media and school-based competitions, along with the offer of specially priced season tickets, is the main vehicle to promote the tournament among the students. For netball fans, the games will be played both morning and evening, with the evening session set for a 5:30 p.m. start to accommodate greater spectatorship. The Barbados Under-16 squad started preparation for the tournament back in September of last year, and the final team will be selected this coming week. Well, that's it for sports. Up next is the weather with Carrie-Ann O'Neill.
Good evening and welcome to the weather news. Well, the ridge pattern is our dominant feature today. As a result, we had a few showers here in Barbados. Meanwhile, the winds are moderate across the region and convergence maintained showers across the Guianas. The maximum temperature today was 29 degrees Celsius, the minimum 24 degrees. At present, the temperature stands at 25 degrees Celsius. The relative humidity 73%, and those winds are coming in from the east-northeast. We take a look now at our satellite feed, where the high-pressure system was our dominant feature. However, we saw those low-level clouds drifting across the island. As a result, we had some showers up to 4 millimeters of rainfall. Meanwhile, the winds, they're peaking at 90 knots. The sea is moderate in open water, with swells peaking at 2.5 meters. Later on tonight, we can expect cloudy skies along with a few brief showers. We'll also have a few clear breaks here in Barbados. Further south, convergence maintained some showers across the Guianas, and over in the Western Caribbean, a shear line maintained wet conditions across the Bahamas as well as Cuba. Elsewhere had just a few passing showers. Well, that's our first look at the weather. After the break, we'll have the forecast. Welcome back. In the forecast for tomorrow, the sun is expected to rise at 17 minutes after 6 and will set at 6 minutes past 6. Now, the first high tide is expected at 1:26 in the early morning and the first low at 5:39 a.m. The seas, I can tell you, well, they're moderate in open water with swells peaking at 2.5 meters. The winds, they're coming in from the east, northeast, and they're peaking at 35 kilometers per hour. For us here in Barbados tonight, it will be cloudy along with clear breaks and a few brief showers. Over the next 3 days, a mixture of sunshine, clouds, and showers can be expected.
Well, that's our news for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.